Good morning. Today we're going to be looking at how film and the film industry has impacted television history. For example, why do we spend $10 on popcorn and sit next to strangers? In the history of film, it's all about the experience. When looking at the history of film, we have to go back to the late 1800s where Thomas Edison, famous for multiple things throughout our innovative era, is also credited with the first kinetoscope. A kinetoscope is very similar to the picture on the right, what is known as the viewfinder, where it is showing multiple frames in a rapid pace to try to tell a story. Where after that, we have the Lumiere brothers kind of piggybacking off of Thomas Edison's innovation to craft what is known as the first moving picture. In 1895, they will record the first moving picture ever, which is basically a train arriving in a stop in France, and it's only 50 seconds long. So please take a look at the first movie ever created. You'll notice it is a silent film with music interjected into the background to make it more pleasant and enjoyable for people's viewing. While watching it, you should also notice that there is onlookers, or the public is really intrigued by what is being pointed at them, not obviously realizing that it will be the first motion picture. And the Lumiere brothers are cornered in the bottom right picture to show their innovation. Following that, we have, over the early 1900s, we have the creation of not the cable channel Nickelodeon, but storefront theaters known as Nickelodeons. In the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you can see the first Nickelodeon that was created in the city of Milwaukee is known as the Butterfly Theater. And the Butterfly Theater will have thousands of viewers throughout the early 1900s see the silent films that are the first portrayal of what would be modern day cinema. By 1900 or 1909, you can see, there's over 10,000 in the United States. So clearly the advent or the orientation of film was very intriguing for people to visit. It was a date night. It was an experience. It was even a learning opportunity for them. As you can see in the third bullet, the movies that are created at these Nickelodeons are cheap, affordable, and for all social classes. So it's really welcoming the masses, which would be occurring during this time, is a flood of immigrants, millions of immigrants into the country that is America. These immigrants capitalized on these silent films because it also assisted them in learning how to speak English. For example, you'd see the scene, and then it would transfer over to the language or dictation on the screen, which people could learn actions through English. We then move on to, as Hollywoodland is adopted into this mecca for the film industry, it is also being used because, unfortunately, in the beginning of the 1900s, where film was popular was in Europe, and because of World War I during 1914 through 1918 and even beyond, you have a war-torn continent and production films not producing many films in Europe. Therefore, they find themselves into the United States. And because the West Coast and LA was highly populated and Hollywoodland was not, this was a perfect platform for studios to be created, for filming to take place. Most of you know that sign at the top is just Hollywood, although this was where the kind of birthplace of modern day film industry in America was created. Because throughout the decades you have a bit of a struggle with the invention of the television in the 1940s and 50s, you see the film industry not take off as it was once intended to. It's basically on a standstill until after even World War II. You can see World War II would subject itself into another level of scrutiny for filming because an entire generation of males and females were providing for the war effort. During those times in the 1940s and 50s, you can see the third bullet is addressing the fact that movies are lacking addressing very sensitive topics, including adultery, violence, and even war. And that would be because they're too touchy and too sensitive in nature to cover in such a sensitive era of American history. However, that does not last too long because after even the World War II, Vietnam, and modern day, we have now sensitive topics really being the essence of what the film industry wants to capture. They are for profit, and that is clearly more important sometimes than creativity. On the right side of the screen, you have some of your classics from the pinnacle era of the film industry. A formula for creating a blockbuster is really not just to be known as the blockbuster video industry or film industry that we used to go rent all our movies from, but really a blockbuster has a certain equation to it. This has including usually a huge budget, loads of special effects, and retail merchandise galore. Those three typically land itself maximizing its profits. As you can see here, a couple years ago when The Force Awakens comes out, we have Star Wars on every single page of the 20-page Target ad. And in fact, these 2 pages provided in the lower right-hand corner are fully implementing everything in Star Wars gear, from Star Wars makeup to Star Wars foods, and so on. This is where your Star Wars franchise really maximizes itself and continuously reinvents itself with all the new revealings of future videos that they're producing to this day. This has resulted in some mega movie studios. With the picture on the right, you can see at the bottom area in this location here towards the bottom, these are your mini studios or smaller studios where your mega studios have really capitalized in purchasing these and producing those films for even maximizing more profits. The big 6 are Paramount, Warner Brothers, Sony, Walt Disney, Universal, and 20th Century Fox. They have even continued to diversify themselves by including comic books or comic franchises with paid for purchase franchises with even smaller or enjoyable franchises that we've grown up to know and love. And even these studios today are continuously looking to purchase TV networks and magazines and radio stations and newspapers. All these outlets are ways for them to advertise and over advertise to really make sure they maximize their profits. Here's another rendition of that at a much larger scale, and this is continuously shifting because of the constant purchasing of smaller studios by the larger big 6 studios. Here, if you could take a moment on this one to take a look through how America has really been attempted, through the film industry, has attempted to really create a mashup of all the movies that will replicate or recreate our American history. Whether it be fantasized, whether it be exaggerated, whether it be accurate, it's all done to maximize profits and entertain at the same time. So what can we learn from film? Film can do many powerful things. For once, it can really lead to some negatives, including the violence and sexual activity that's revealed, some unrealistic standards, propaganda for advertising, and really challenges to our own lifestyle. It can expose us to the negatives, but also have many positives. For example, think of movies that have inspired you, have motivated you, have been a call to action, informed, gave you a really good reality check, focused on some substantial creativity, or even just as a social entertainment outlet. Films are great for this. Excuse the bells. In this scene, it's kind of interesting to see how music can play such an influence on the scenes we have seen throughout. In this Star Wars ending clip, provided and composed by John Williams, while watching it, you will notice that there is no music implemented into this scene when the original footage was shot. Notice how awkward watching the film or the scene from Star Wars is without any musical influence. It almost changes the entire experience and actually hard to finish watching because it's so awkward in its delivery. While this scene here is the real scene from the Star Wars movie ending portion of it with all of the musical composition from John Williams, and it really gives the movie a good ending, a positive note, and really the outcome that most viewers would be looking to witness. Another fun example to watch is how music can change in a film is through the Pirates of the Caribbean. Most of us have seen this and familiar with it, but as you're watching it, it'll show the original footage of it, go through some depressing music, go through some comical music, and even some intense music, all while using the same scene in each of them to capture a different perspective. It's hilarious to watch, and in fact, you'll probably find yourself even chuckling when the comical music enters the same scene that most of us have already witnessed. And finally, who doesn't love the movie Frozen? Frozen has been noted as one of the most watched movies of the last 5 years and probably overwatched. Notice this trailer here changes all the original scenes of Frozen to a horror trailer. And in fact, the music itself, again, not only with the scenes, really changed the perspective of the impact that music can have on the film industry. And kind of to end it, if I can draw your attention to the bottom of the slide here, we'll be doing the music trivia at a different time at the top, but we do have some studs in the music industry. They would include John Williams as your most prolific composer through film, and then Hans Zimmerman as a close second there. If you look at the laundry list of movies they have composed or been a part of, they truly represent the experience in film and almost change the environment to any movie beyond dialogue. So what kind of impact does music play with our brains and our memories? They really can make an emotional impression that can change the language of what we're witnessing across cultures. They can help anticipate the next line of a song or the feeling of a song to help us have a better impression of the scene. And again, music can even, as always, help us motivate, inspire, cope, relax. And there's many other things that music can play a physical influence on our minds and towards the scene. So thank you for checking this out, and we'll be sure to bring your questions to class with anything that may have been misconceived or misunderstood. Thanks so much.